Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Krizia, and I make videos that help current nursing students become successful beyond nursing school.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
And so in today's video, I'm going to be talking about 5 ways West Coast University prepared me to be a successful new graduate nurse. First of all, I just want to say thank you guys for watching my videos, and thank you guys for all the support and the likes and subscribing to my channel. If you guys have not yet subscribed to my channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you never miss my videos. So the very first tip that I'm going to be going over is how West Coast helped prepare me to deal with anxiety and stress. West Coast University is also known as Stress Coast University. And so the program itself they don't market the program itself as an accelerated BSN program, but technically it is, because the terms are 10 weeks long and you don't get any break. And the only time we ever get a break is during Thanksgiving, only on that Thursday and Friday. And if you even have class on those days, you'll get those days off. If you don't, then you have those days off. And we usually have about a 2-week vacation during Christmas time, so about 2 weeks before Christmas, and then we get back until that same week after the New Year's. And that is the only time we ever get a break. So every time you finish a term and you finish that final on that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you start it all over again the next week on Monday, Tuesday. So you don't really get a break. You basically only get about a 3-day break in between terms. And so it's constantly putting you in a rush and just never having time to just take a little break from nursing school. But at the same time, it goes by super quick. And the reason why this program is so rigorous is because the nursing profession itself is very rigorous. As a new graduate nurse, I've learned about constantly being stressed and knowing how to deal with that stress. And what I learned in nursing school is that I would have those weeks where I'd cry and I'd break down, but I'd get through those weeks and know that at the end of that week that I did it, and that means that I can get over anything. And so over time with nursing school, I started to build this type of resilience of knowing how to deal with anxiety, knowing when it's going to get bad for me, and basically knowing when to take a step back. When I get stressed out, before, I would literally just sleep and go to bed and ignore all of my responsibilities, and that would end up with me having more anxiety and me being a lot more stressed, because now I'm behind on what I originally planned on doing. And so what I like to do is, whenever I feel stressed, when I feel overwhelmed, when I feel anxious, I just like to sit down, create a plan, and write down all my goals that I would like to do that day. And that is the exact same thing that I do now as a new graduate nurse, is that before my week happens, I know I have to see X amount of patients. I'll plan out my week and actually make some little ways for making it flexible. That way, just in case if I have an admission later on in that day and my schedule will get messed up, I could move my patients on to another day. And so being able to take control of the situation and becoming resilient in the times where I felt like breaking down and feeling like I'm never gonna get through that day, I was able to learn how to combat that and learn how to deal with it, and finding little things to do in order to feel a little bit more better, or easing that stress and anxiety throughout that week. Now, the second tip that I'm going to be talking about is the most important thing that I learned in nursing school, is knowing how to be conscious about my time. What I mean about being conscious about my time is knowing how much time I spend, studying, knowing how much time I take a break in between studying, and just being able to look at time and know how long it would take me to do certain things. So for example, I got into this habit during nursing school where I'd plan the next day. So if I had clinical starting at 6:15, I'd be like, okay, let me put an alarm at 5 o'clock. Okay, and put an alarm every 5 minutes up until 5:20. Wake up at 5:20, get ready for my clinicals, and that should take me about 20-25 minutes. The night before, I would make sure I have everything packed up. That way I don't forget anything for my clinicals. And I check the time to see how long it's going to take me to my clinical site, make sure that I add at least 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Well, 10 is a good time, 10 minutes to before my actual start time, which is at 6:05, that I should be there, because it should take me about 5-10 minutes to walk to my actual clinical floor. And so I was being time conscious of, okay, I have 5 minutes to get ready if I'm late, or just constantly knowing how long I'm going to end up taking. And so what this has helped me as a new graduate nurse is when I'm seeing my patients, I'm time conscious of, okay, it's going to take me this long to get to my patient's house. I'm going to see this patient for X amount of times. That way I can meet my next patient at the time that I was scheduled to meet them. And so I'm conscious about making sure that I'm having enough time for each of my patients and making sure that I'm not spending too much time for each of my patients or spending too much time where later on I'm going to get overwhelmed with having to chart everything with such little time. So I make sure that when I'm planning my days and I'm time conscious, okay, I'm going to spend 4 to 5 hours going out seeing my patient and then spending the next 3 hours charting everything. And so I always want to make sure that I'm conscious of the time, knowing how much time I have left to chart at the end of the day. The third tip that I learned from nursing school is professionalism, being professional and also showing up on time. Okay, so my school, West Coast University, was very strict in what we were. They were very strict on how we presented ourselves. So we had to make sure that our hair was away from our face. We had to have our hair back like this. And I always like to put my hair in a bun because when I'm in the hospital and I have to clean up people's poop, I don't want my hair hanging and dangling and in their poop, you know? So I always had my hair up in a bun. I always made sure that I looked presentable, because if you look professional to your nurses and you look like your uniform is actually non-wrinkly, everything is all ironed out, and your shoes are clean, then you'll look good in front of the nurses that you're working with. And also remember that when you're on the floor, it's also time for you to connect with other nurses. And so the way you look definitely says a lot about yourself. And so this transferred over to my, as an actual nurse, because I need to go in to work not looking like a hot mess. And sometimes we do, but at the same time, we still have to look like you're actually trying to be presentable. You don't want to go into work with wrinkly uniform, with your hair all messed up, and it's just not going to look professional. And I definitely feel that my school prepared me for that. In addition to this, West Coast University was also very strict when it came to your attendance. So I always made sure I was on time. The only time I was ever late was like once or twice, and it gave me the most anxiety. So always making sure that I was on time and always making sure I showed up to class, because it's very important for you to show up to class, because it's the same thing. You can't just not show up for work on days where you need to show up for work. You can't just days where you feel like you don't need to go to work, days where you feel like you don't need to go to class. You can't just not show up. So West Coast University put me in the habit of making sure I showed up to places where I needed to be. And if there was an issue, if there was traffic, if there was anything going on, I made sure to text my professor or to let my clinical professor know, like, hey, there's traffic, I'm stuck in traffic, or I got in a car accident, etc. And communication has helped a lot when it came to communicating with my communicating with my professors. The last thing too is making sure I meet deadlines and turning in assignments on time. And so with West Coast, honestly, there was one time where I submitted an assignment and I submitted it without the correct score, and I ended up getting a 0 for that. And if I did not get a 0 from that, I would have gotten an A in that class and not an A-. And so you always need to make sure that you're turning your assignments in on time, meaning that you turn in your clinical assignments the night before you go into class. Don't turn it in during clinicals. You want to make sure you're turning in all your assignments that are due the time that they have asked you to turn it in. This is carried over into my career as a nurse, because I have to make sure that I'm submitting all of my charting notes before a certain date. And what I like to do and what my goal is every day is to make sure that I complete my notes on the same day. That way I don't get behind on all my work and have one day where I'm just catching up on all my work. So I like to make sure that I stay on top of my work. I like to make sure I stay on top of my charting. And that was the same thing that I was doing when I was working on the floor at a hospital, is that every time I take my vitals, I'd go in and chart it right away. I wouldn't wait until later on, because sometimes the nurses need those vital signs right away and don't want you to wait until you take 25 patients' vital signs to finally give them the vital signs. So make sure that you're turning things on time, you're doing things on as real time as possible and not waiting until the last minute, hours later to actually chart certain things, because you're going to forget a lot of stuff. The fourth thing that I want to talk about is nursing school has taught me to go beyond the bare minimum. And what I mean by this is every time I showed up to class, every time I showed up to my clinicals, I always made sure that I wasn't just turning in the assignments on time. I wasn't just showing up and, meeting the attendance, but to actually sit in class, pay attention, take notes, because all of this information is gonna rely on it. You're gonna rely on all this information later on. And it goes back to, again, of being behind on things and catching up on things. You're going to your class, and that already counts as a way for you to study. It's already a way for you to start absorbing all this new information. That way when you go home, you already have an idea of what that information is, instead of just showing up to class and then going home and be like, what the heck did we talk about, or what did she say about this again, and not having any notes, because you basically wasted 4 hours of your day, because that's how long the classes are at West Coast. 4 hours of lecture, not paying attention, going home to having to spend double, triple the time to try to understand the information. And so put in the time, put in the effort, because all these habits that you're going to develop in nursing school is going to carry on as a nurse. And that has happened a lot in things that I have learned. And so I didn't want to waste my money to go to nursing school and just put in the bare minimum effort, meaning showing up to class, getting the bare minimum grade, which is a C plus or 76%, and then to graduate with just the bare minimum of a nurse. I wanted to graduate knowing that I was prepared, and knowing that when I get on the field, I already know and expect what to do. And I don't mean like everything of diseases, knowing what medications. There's still that learning curve, but at least you have and built that foundation that you need to build on. And so when you get into the nursing world, or when you get your license and you start practicing a licensed nurse, you have that little small foundation of just the basic, because that's what nursing school teaches you. And so develop those habits now and make sure that you're doing your best that you can. The last thing and the fifth tip on what nursing school, or how nursing school prepared me to be a successful nurse, is knowing that I can conquer anything, and knowing that I should walk in and be confident in myself. And so as a nursing student, you don't know what the hell you're doing. And as a new grad nurse, you don't know what the hell you're doing. But what you can do is to walk in and be confident in yourself, confident in what you say, and be confident in front of your patients for them to trust you. Okay? Because if they see someone who's confident, they'll see someone who knows what they're doing, even though you don't know what you're doing, because you can walk out that room, talk to your preceptor, talk to someone and ask them, what the hell should I do about this? Okay? And so as a nursing student, a lot of the times we had to practice. When we do our skills, we'd practice walking in and my classmate's a patient, or there's a fake dummy that's my patient and I have my clinical professor on the side. Walk in, be confident, and act like you know what you're doing, even though you don't know what you're doing. And that's what I had to do in the nursing world, especially as a new grad. You don't know a lot of the things that you're doing. It may be the first time you're doing an IV. It may be the first time you're doing a Foley. It may be the first time you're doing an enema. And that's what happened to me. And it was the first time I actually had to do an enema on a patient. And then my preceptor was like, Krizia, you need to walk in and act like you're confident, act like you know what you're doing. And that's what I did. And they said, don't let the family know this is your first time. Don't tell them, don't be fidgety, don't be not confident in yourself, and just go in there, put it in there and squeeze that liquid in there and do it all. And I did it, and it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Before I even went there, I watched YouTube videos. My preceptor sent me some journals on how to do it, making sure the patient lays on their left side and all that stuff. And you just got to make sure that you're confident and knowing that you can conquer anything. And that will happen when you're done with nursing school, because you're going to look back and you're going to be like, holy freaking shit. Like, I went through nursing school, I did all that, and I'm successful. Now let me do the same thing as a licensed nurse, because that time around, when you're a licensed nurse, you're going to be responsible for people's lives. It isn't going to be a dummy. It isn't going to be your classmate. It's going to be an actual person whose life depends on you. Okay, so that's why it's so important to create this strong foundation of just the basics, and to be able to build on that as a new grad nurse. And so you want to enter the nursing field at least being confident in the basic things and being able to build on top of that, adding more knowledge, because you will learn so much as a new grad nurse. You won't learn half the things. Nursing school basically prepares you to learn all these diseases, to learn the basics of medications, what it's for. But when you go in and actually go out into the world, it's going to test your knowledge, and it's going to be a very, very big learning curve for you. And so I hope you guys found these 5 tips on what to do as a nursing student in order to be a successful new graduate nurse or successful licensed nurse when you're done with school. So I hope you guys like these kinds of videos. I'm going to be making more of these kinds of videos because I'm going to be focusing my channel more on helping you guys nursing students and what you can do now in order to be prepared when you graduate. So thank you guys again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you need help with anything, you can DM me on my Instagram at Krizia___. Thank you.